Hello again. Right, I wanted to go through some more stuff with you. I think I'm going to have to do several videos, okay? I have absolutely no idea of what kind of level I need to pitch this at, okay? So I'm going to start with quite noddy stuff, okay? And look at maidens and just discuss horses in general and have a little bits and bobs. And then over the next couple of videos, I'll start getting into kind of how I pick horses. So how do horses start in racing then? I'll mainly refer to flat for this. So most flat horses start racing when they're 2 years old, and they'll run over kind of shorter distances. So you're talking 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 furlongs, okay, depending on how they're bred. But it'll mainly be 5, 6, or 7 furlongs because they don't want the horses running over the middle distances when they're so young. They're not strong and mature enough, okay. Some horses might not run till a 3-year-old. They're the horses that are more likely to either start or end up doing middle distance and kind of stay in races. Okay, so they just need generally a little bit bigger, need a bit more time to kind of fill their frame. And this, I am just kind of generalising here, okay, there's no kind of hard and fast rule there. Okay, so when a horse starts out, it's a maiden, and it will run in maiden races, and it will remain a maiden until it has won a race. Now, it will either win a maiden, okay, and then get given a handicap mark, and a handicap mark or an official rating is a numerical assessment of how good a horse is, okay. So if a horse is rated 60, that's okay. If a horse is rated 70, it's better. If a horse is rated 80, it's better again, and so on and so forth. If a horse rated 70 runs in a race for horses rated 0 to 70, it'll carry top weight. It'll most likely carry about 9 stone 10. A horse rated 60 would then carry 9 stone against that horse. Okay, so that's how that works. So a horse will run until it's given a handicap mark. Now in maidens, there's lots of different types and kind of rules as to how they work. But for the most part, you just kind of, your bang average maiden, it is boys and girls. Colts and geldings will get one weight, and fillies will get a filly's allowance. Okay, they'll it's normally about £3. They'll run off £3 lighter. A lot of horses will never win a maiden. They'll run in 3 maidens. They'll get outclassed. They'll get given a low handicap mark, and then they'll start running against similarly average horses, and they'll start to pick up races like that. Okay. Some other kind of noddy stuff. So a horse is like, how do you assess a horse that's never run before? Well, breeding, quite simply. Okay, so the horse's dad is called its sire. The horse's mum is called the dam. A lot of the time when people are looking at horse racing, they'll only look at the male lines. Okay, so they won't look at excuse me, that they're not necessarily looking at the sire and the dam, they're looking at the dam's sire. Okay, and what you'll hear people say is things like it's a Galileo colt. Okay, so all the horses by Galileo out of an Exceed and Excel mare. So what they're saying is that the Galileo is the sire, and the dam sire is Exceed and Excel, for example. Okay, and it's for that reason that you can have horses that are quite closely related, even though their mums are different. Okay, if that makes sense. Obviously Galileo is sired loads and loads and loads. Okay, so the horses now that are still running that are sired by Galileo, there are horses now that are running that are sired by Frankel, but Frankel is sired by Galileo. Okay, and so on and so forth. So actually, it can become quite complicated. Okay, so the horses then, but for the male horse, you've got colts, okay, and geldings when they've had a gelding operation, okay, when they've been castrated, and then later on they're referred to as horses, or they can be referred to as entire, and that means that they've not been castrated. And there you're looking at you kind of group horses and your listed horses and all the rest of it. Okay, they're the ones that they want to send to stud, because they can make much more money out of a racehorse at stud if they're good, if they've got a good record. They can make much more money out of them at stud than they can in prize money. So that's why it's fantastic that when a horse like Frankel comes along, that actually they let the horse run as a 4-year-old, because they could have retired him as a 3-year-old unbeaten, and they'd have made just as much money from his progeny. Actually, they give him another year, and it's fantastic for racing fans that they did that, because normally most of the best horses, they'll get retired at kind of 3 years old on the flat, which is a huge shame. So colts, geldings, and then just a horse. Okay, although you may hear them referred to as entire, which means they've not had the cock shopped. Okay, and then for the girls, it's fillies, and then they become a mare when they're 4 years old, and then later a brood mare, dam, okay, whatever you want to call it. So that's just some kind of little simple bits there. Now, as I've referred to Galileo, I'll use him again as an example. Somebody sends a mare to Galileo, they pay for what they call a cover. That basically means the horse is going to get the mare up the spout, okay, and then they check to see if the horse is pregnant. Because Galileo's job is to fuck other horses, okay, effectively, he's there at stud. Excuse me, tired today. Because that's his job, you refer to his children as his progeny, okay, but you can't possibly refer to them all as brothers or half brothers or anything else, because there's bloody hundreds of them. Okay, so if you hear somebody say this horse is a half brother to this horse, they'll be referring to the dam's side. Okay, because obviously it's easy for Galileo to kind of shoot his muck, and that's that. He can do that several times a day. Okay, but the mare will go through the whole kind of period and then eventually give birth. So the mare won't have half as many progeny as obviously the stallion will. Okay. You can get so a lot of the dams were race horses, but you also get a lot that weren't. Okay, and that's where it can get a little bit confusing. So you can look at the mum and you can look at the dad and you think, well, they were both good race horses, so there's a good possibility that the progeny will be good. But then if you get an unraced dam, how do you kind of compare that? Well, again, that's why a lot of people go to the dad, okay? That they look at the dam's sire and say, even though she was unraced, she's got good blood, effectively, and you sort of go from there. If a horse costs a lot of money, if it's represented by certain connections, you're talking like Godolphin, obviously always have quite good 2-year-olds, young precocious horses, Khalid Abdullah, anything that's kind of trained by Richard Fay, really. He's always got his 2-year-olds in kind of that they're nice and forward and they know their job first time. Certainly at the pretty short distances, they always kind of know their job, and you can see that they're quirky and a little bit green, but they also they just look forward and they know their job. Okay, so before we get into kind of the weeds of handicapping and all the rest of it, that's how a horse effectively ends up as a handicapper. Okay, they'll start off as a 2 or 3-year-old. They'll run in maidens. They will only shed their maiden tag when they have won a race. So if a horse, let's say a horse races in 3 maidens and he doesn't win a race, he'll then get given a handicap mark. Okay, if he then runs in another 10 handicaps and he's still not won, he's still a maiden. Okay, he doesn't have to win a maiden to shed his maiden tag. He can win any race. Okay, and that's basically it. Okay, so 2-year-old handicaps are referred to as nurseries. Okay, that's because they're babies. 2-year-olds run against 2-year-olds. That's it. 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, they can all run against each other. You do have specific 3-year-old handicaps, okay? If a 3-year-old is running in a normal handicap, what I call a normal handicap, the 3-year-olds may get an allowance against the older horses. But all of that, when you look in the newspaper, when you look on the Racing Post online, when you look at any of that, it's important that you read the conditions of the race, okay? And that'll be the bit that's along the top. And again, we'll cover more of this in later videos. All right, thanks.